News at 6, the Green Bay School Board issuing a new statement just minutes ago about the recent resignation of Superintendent Dr. Claude Tiller Jr. The board accepted Tiller's resignation on February 17th amid an investigation into comments that he made during a radio interview in Atlanta earlier this month. This week, Tiller said he was open to the possibility of returning to the role. A statement from the board tonight says, in part, quote, under the terms of the separation agreement, he was provided the opportunity to change his mind and rescind his resignation. He did not do so. The window to have this conversation has closed, and there are no further comments to make. We are now moving forward with discussing the process for identifying and selecting the district's next superintendent, end quote. The board set a meeting date of March 5th to discuss the open position. Deputy Superintendent Vicki Beyer is handling those duties, that is, for the time being.